The first thing newcomers notice about the quarter is silence, and the second is sameness. The air tastes of canned humidity, dry, flat, sterilized by the municipal scrubbers that drone day and night above the tin roof warrens. No breeze ever carries the rust-dust scent of the desert or the bitter promise of rain. Those belong to districts guarded by the olfactory directorate. Down here, people trade in shadows of wind. Little glass vials marked with names like Grandmother's Kitchen, Bike Tire After Sun, or Cedar Closet 1976. They pass from palm to palm like contraband gems, uncorked only in secret when a customer is ready to part with half a week's protein. Mira Selin was one of the last true scavenger distillers. Her nose was not exceptionally keen. It had been dulled by years of filter-recycled oxygen, but she possessed the rarer talent of memory trance. When the faintest trace of something ghosted past her sinuses, she could picture the place that birthed it, could peel the layers of dust away with her mind until the smell stood alone, intact. Then she hunted it, bottled it, and bartered it across every alley in the quarter. It kept her and her younger brother alive after the directorate nationalized fresh air. One morning, just after dawn, lamps flicked off. Mira waited outside her shack for a client. She watched sunlight smear through the permanent haze between rooftops, imagining the warmth carried all the way from the real sky. She'd never seen that sky unobstructed. Maybe no one alive had. The directors insisted that unfiltered air was lethal, that only their proprietary, clean-stream ventilation could protect humanity from the poisons left by the long combustion. Most people believed them because there was no memory of anything else. At least, no memory except smells. The client arrived, a former chemist called Argos, now half smuggler, half information broker. He wore a charcoal respirator painted with matte gold lines, directorate style. Only the wealthy paraded with such designs. He handed Mira a sealed envelope bearing the crest of High Director Luth. The wax smelled like synthetic sandalwood, standard issue for government correspondence. "Special commission," Argos said, voice muffled. "Pays more than you've ever seen, but there's risk." Mira slid the letter open. Inside, a single phrase, "Autumn Rain, University Green, 1998. Beneath the line sat an account number worth 30,000 ration credits, enough for a year of luxuries or safe passage across 3 city-states. The directors had nostalgia cravings just like everyone else. "Who's it for?" she asked. "The director's eldest. A coming-of-age gala next week in the Ivory Dome. They want the air flooded with this scent." Argos's eyes narrowed. "You can refuse. The directorate never leaves loose ends when they hire from the quarter." She reread the words. "Autumn Rain, University Green, 1998. She had never set foot in a university, but rain she understood. Damp asphalt, bruised leaves, the hush before thunder. If she could capture that, she could bargain for release from the quarter forever. She thought of her brother sleeping inside, lungs rattling against the cheap filters. 30,000 credits could buy him months in a clinic with real oxygen. "I'll do it," she said. Argos produced a map of the old Midtown campus, now an exclusion zone. "The ruins are sealed, but storm-drained still vent into the river. You'll need to go below. Rumor says remnants of the old botanical quad remain. Moss, ivy, maybe even soil. Bring back whatever still exhales." He left with a parting warning. The directorate's monopoly is brittle. One stray breath of what the world used to be, and people remember they were free. Keep your head down. Mira spent the afternoon preparing. She packed her portable distiller. Copper coils coiled inside an insulated case and wrapped her olfactory recorder. an ancient device resembling a stethoscope with a membrane for trapping volatile molecules in oilcloth. Finally, she filled 2 inhaler canisters with neutralizing vapor. If she tripped a directorate sensor, the vapor would overwrite any volatile trace in her wake. The sun had bled out when she crossed into Midtown. The security fence was chain link laced with fiber optics, but Mira had studied patterns long enough to know the blind spots. She crouched, cut a diamond of mesh, and slipped through. Inside, silence shifted. It was not the mechanical hush of the quarter, but a living stillness, as though everything were holding its breath. Crumbled lecture halls rose like limestone cliffs, windows punched open to the void. She followed Argos's map to a stone arch half swallowed by vines. Beneath it, stairs spiraled into darkness. Cool air greeted her like forgotten music. It carried an undercurrent she hadn't smelled since childhood. Petrichor, that word older than the crisis, meaning the blood of stones when rain arrives. She knelt, touched the moist wall, and let her memory trance rise. The scent unfolded, wet chalk dust, algae on concrete, and iron specks from leaky pipes. But beyond that lay the crisp green surge of field grass under afternoon showers. She recorded every molecule she could catch, chanting names in her head so none would slip away. Near the drain's end, she found water pooled ankle-deep. Arcs of ivy fed off what little light seeped through grates above. She clipped bundles, sealed them in copper foil, captured vapor in her recorder, and whispered thanks to the ghost of 1998. Hours later, she emerged carrying the past in her satchel. No alarms shrieked, no spotlights carved through the gloom. She'd been lucky or skillful, and in her business those were the same. Back at her shack, Nick, the brother, sat on the floor inhaling medicated vapor from a cracked ceramic cup. He looked up, face hollow but smiling. "You went out." "We'll buy new filters soon," she told him, "and maybe a garden sprayer so we can smell basil again." "Basil," he murmured like it was magic. She kissed his forehead and started the distillation. The process required silence. She warmed the coils with a battery torch, fed droplets of ivy essence into the glass womb, and watched aqua mist condense along the tube walls, dragging memory oil behind it. Every 50 heartbeats, she sniffed the vapor bleed, adjusting heat to coax the right balance of ozonic top notes and barky bass. Too much ozone, and it would smell sterile, like directorate corridors. Too much bark, and it turned swampy. Halfway through, an aroma surfaced that made her grip the table. Not rain, not soil, but the high, sweet breath of freedom. Wind across a field where no drones hovered. She hadn't caught it in the drains. It must have been buried within the ivy's DNA, a hereditary recollection of open country. She isolated the fraction, labeling it liberation. When dawn painted the smog violet, she held 3 files: rainfall, earthskin, and liberation. Combined, they would build autumn rain, university green, 1998. Yet something nagged at her. She thought of Argos's warning. One stray breath could kindle rebellion. Liberation, even in microdose, might shake the Ivory Dome's controlled atmosphere. The Directorate would never allow that. If she delivered the blend untouched, they would test it, note the rogue molecules, and either purge them or purge her. Nick coughed behind the curtain. She tucked the files away and faced him. "I have to take a walk." He looked at the satchel. "You're meeting buyers?" "Not yet. Need a consultation?" She winked. "I'll be safe." Outside, the quarter buzzed with morning barter. Stalls hawked freeze-dried noodles, recycled textiles, bootleg oxygen cartridges. Mira took side streets until she reached the abandoned perfume lab, known as the Hollow Flag. It was where renegade chemists evangelized against the Directorate. There she found Zahir, an aging scent mason who had lost his sense of smell from a nerve agent but retained encyclopedic knowledge of aromatic compounds. She explained her dilemma. Zahir listened, fingers tapping glass vials in blind habit. The Directorate's gala airs will be scrubbed by their towers. Even a molecule out of place will trigger lockdown. Liberation will be detected. So I remove it. You could. He leaned closer. Or you could use it. She folded her arms. They'd notice. Not if you bind it to a denatured carrier, he said. Mask the signature until the moment of diffusion. Then heat ruptures the bond and, poof, liberation spills everywhere. That sounds like a death sentence for me. Zahir shrugged, or the birth cry of a city. He guided her through the synthesis. Attach liberation to a dormant aldehyde, found commonly in the Directorate's own air tablets. Once dispersed, filters would read it as standard cleansing vapor. But as warm bodies crowded the gala, skin temperature would catalyze separation, unleashing the unfiltered scent. Mira's heart thudded. If it worked, everyone in the dome, directors, guests, servers, would inhale a memory of freedom the Directorate could not erase. The monopoly on fresh air was built not just on machinery, but on collective amnesia. She could return the memory. But Nick. 30,000 credits could save him now, not after a revolution. She laid out options across her mind like cards. Accept payment, remove liberation, live quietly, or smuggle liberation, maybe bring down a tyrant, maybe die, maybe leave Nick an orphan. She needed counsel from the one person who counted. She went home. He was slicing stale loaf into thin coins. We're out of spread, he said. We'll buy more. She sat opposite him. Nicky, I may do something dangerous. He smiled weakly. When are you not? This job, if I finish the way they want, we'll be rich. But if I finish the way I want, we might change everything. Except, I might not come back. Nick set the knife down. Do you remember Mom? Pieces, she said. I remember how she smelled after working in the greenhouse. Dirt and mint and sweat. When the sky fell, Directorate air took that away. He looked at her, eyes steady. Give it back, even if we don't get to breathe it long. She wrapped him in her arms, tears stinging. Then that's what I'll do. For 3 nights she labored. Binding liberation to the aldehyde was delicate. One wrong heat pulse, and the fraction would degrade. Finally, she loaded the completed scent, rainfall formula plus bound liberation, into 6 crystalline ampules engraved with the Directorate crest, forged by a glass artist with no love for tyrants. At dusk on the eve of the gala, Argos arrived with 2 ivory dome escorts. They inspected the ampoules. One guard uncorked a vial, sniffed, and nodded, eyes misting at the memory of storms. The Director will be pleased. Payment transferred instantly to Mira's wrist chip. 30,000 credits glowed. She deleted the balance, sending every unit to the quarter's clinic fund. The guards didn't notice. Their masks were clogged by nostalgia. Argos lingered as the escort left. You did something, he said quietly. Maybe. She fastened her coat. You still run mid-level ventilation systems? I tinker, he admitted. Midnight. East exhaust to the ivory dome. Can you override backflow valves for 15 minutes? He stared as realization dawned. That would pump internal air into the streets. Exactly the time the scent blooms. Can you do it? Argos tapped ash from an unlit cigarette. For you, Mira Salen, I can. He walked away, folding his gold respirator under his arm. the first time she'd seen his face unmasked. The ivory dome rose like a pearl, half buried in rubble, its marble ribs encircled by ventilation towers. Mira joined the service line at the south portico, wearing a borrowed steward uniform. The pass in her pocket was coded to a non-existent employee, Argos's forgery. Inside, chandeliers glowed behind cascades of chilled mist, so the air shimmered with pre-programmed scents of lilac and citrus. Approved nostalgia, focus tested for harmlessness. She drifted through corridors, brushing shoulders with dignitaries in carbon silk gowns. Their private respirators hung from jeweled chains, more status symbol than necessity. People inhaled with mouths open, as though trying to swallow beauty before it vanished. But Mira smelled only expensive sterilization. At the grand atrium, High Director Luth stood on a dais flanked by guardians in white armor. He tapped a spoon against a crystal flute. "Tonight," he proclaimed, "we celebrate my daughter Alice and the prosperous years to come under the shelter of our clean stream towers." Polite applause. Musicians struck slow chords, echoing against the dome. Time. Mira slipped into the fragrance control room. Cooling fans whirred beside racks of file cartridges, feeding the diffuser grid. She replaced the lilac cartridge with her own, locking the ampoules into the heated cradle. The system status blinked green. Outside, the musicians shifted into a resolve. Air vents hissed. A hush rippled through the crowd as the first notes of rain, earth, and young grass brushed their nostrils. Faces softened, eyes closed. Mira watched through the glass panel, heart pounding. At first, it was simple nostalgia. Good old rain on a gazebo, friends laughing in puddles, steam on city bricks. But then heat built against skin, and the bound aldehyde snapped. Liberation unfurled like a banner. People inhaled and staggered. The scent was not strong. It was true. It carried the sensory memory of wind on open plains, where no towers blocked horizon, of breathing without filters, until lungs expanded in sweet shock. It was raw and endless, and no machine could replicate it. Mira saw Director Luth grip the railing, eyes wide in wonder, before the security overlay kicked in. An alarm screamed. Ventilation towers attempted to purge, but Argos's override engaged. Instead of sucking air in, towers belched it into the night. The quarter's sky blossomed with petrichor. Inside the dome, panic mingled with ecstasy. Guards wrestled masks onto officials, but many flung them aside. Some wept. A woman giggled like a child and danced beneath the marble ribs. The gala dissolved into chaos, charged with possibility. Mira slipped out amid the confusion. Sirens blared, but the streets were already filling with residents smelling rain that had never reached them before. Heads tilted upward. Conversations fizzled into stunned silence as the sky seemed, for the first time, to breathe. She sprinted toward the quarter. Near the east exhaust, she found Argos crouched by a valve wheel, grin stretching across his soot-smudged face. 15 minutes became 40, he shouted over the roar. Couldn't help myself. Down alleyways, shack doors flew open. Children ran, hands raised, laughing at nothing but the air. Old women clutched rosaries and whispered prayers. From rooftops, improvised banners appeared. "We remember." Mira reached her shack. Inside, Nick stood without his inhaler, chest rising full. His eyes shone. Outside his window, a breeze rolled dust devils through trash lanes, but it smelled of moss and hope. "You did it," he said simply. "For now," Mira replied. News bulletins cracked across public screens. Olfactory breach at Ivory Dome, Directorate investigating. Her face might already be among the suspects, but the quarter had tasted something the Directorate could never confiscate again. That night, bonfires burned in barrels along the river. People gathered, sharing stories triggered by the scent. Road trips through pine forests, bacon frying at a seaside cabin, the chemical sting of new textbooks on autumn mornings. None were sure if memories were real or imagined, but they clung to them as proof that life could be larger. Zahir found Mira near the embankment. He carried a sealed clay pot. "Sandalwood and firelight," he said, offering it. "A humble blend. We'll need more distillers now. The city's waking up." Mira accepted the pot. "I'm not hiding," he chuckled. "No, but you may need to run. The Directorate will strike." She looked at the horizon where towers pulsed red. "Then we run where the wind takes us." Nick joined her, slipping a hand into hers. "So long as we can still smell the way." She squeezed his fingers. Liberation lingered in their nostrils like a vow. Around them, for the first time in years, night air tasted faintly of rain.